My entitled sister abandoned her kids, so I raised them. Years later, they offered me money as a thank you, but she demands it. Hello, I'm 48F, and my younger sister Diana is 46F. Diana and I never really got along growing up. She was always snobby and unpleasant, so we went our separate ways after high school. I chose to go to college while she moved in with her wealthy boyfriend. It was fortunate he had money, as our parents couldn't have afforded her living alone. However, she made it clear she didn't care about their opinions and would do as she pleased. So our parents let her be. Diana had twin girls at 20 and a son at 21 while living with her boyfriend. My parents were happy for her, but also worried. She now had many responsibilities and no job, completely relying on his income. Diana never married him, which I think was a mistake, as she would have been entitled to alimony if they split. They did break up after she found out he was cheating. Thankfully, he provided the child support she was due, but he chose not to be a father and signed away his parental rights. The girls were 3 at the time, and my nephew was only 2. After that, my sister was on her own and needed all the help she could get to manage. Despite our difficult relationship, I decided to help her, mainly due to pressure from our parents. I made a decent living, but it wasn't enough to support all 4 of them. Still, my parents and I contributed a little money each month, and they managed to get by. She struggled for the first few months because she lacked a degree and work experience. She had to start at the bottom and work her way up, which meant dedicating a lot of time to her job to advance quickly. This was hard, as she also had to consider her children and couldn't just leave them home. Hiring a babysitter was an option, but it was too expensive, so she had to rely on me or her friends. Our parents were also working and contributing financially, so they couldn't stay home with the kids. I was in the same boat. She didn't have friends who would consistently watch her kids while she worked, as they all had their own lives and jobs. As a result, she was limited to minimum wage jobs with flexible hours, allowing her to get home quickly. This helped her avoid paying a babysitter for extended periods, which would have been prohibitively expensive. This situation continued for a few years. I believe Diana started to resent her own children, seeing them as obstacles to her success. She claimed they were the only things holding her back. I'd visit occasionally, not for her, but for the children, to make sure they were okay. I didn't have a good relationship with Diana, but I wasn't heartless enough to let innocent kids suffer due to their mother's bad choices. So, my parents and I checked on them regularly. They always complained about Diana's mistreatment. She would scold them for minor things and lash out just for them being children and trying to have fun. It was a miserable existence for them all, and I wished I could help by taking them in, but I couldn't because she was the legal parent and I had no authority. Plus, she was receiving child support and doing her best to get by. I felt bad for her, but even worse for the kids. Diana started dating other men, which made things much worse. Every time a relationship failed, she blamed her children. She was convinced that once her partners discovered she was a mother of 3, they would abandon her. I think it was because she never mentioned her children early on, so only bringing it up after a month or 2, which seemed dishonest. I tried to explain this to her multiple times, but she was convinced she was being rejected because she had kids. She kept teasing them about it, reminding them how their father had left her, threatening to leave them too if they didn't behave. The children were terrified of her, and their childhood was defined by their mother's narcissism. This went on for years. Several times I considered taking the kids and running away with them, but I couldn't. I couldn't petition for custody or report her because while her actions were wrong, they didn't justify taking the children away, so the situation remained, and the kids were just grateful to have me in their lives. My parents were too old to be their friends, but I was always there for them when they needed it. They could never tell their mother about their issues, but they could always go to their aunt, which they did whenever they had problems with school, academics, or even Diana. They'd come to me, and I appreciated their trust. It's no surprise that when they turned 18, they decided to leave their mother's house and move in with me instead. Now that they were adults, they could choose where and with whom to live. They chose me. Diana was clearly unhappy and had a lot to say. She claimed she had wasted 18 years of her life raising these children, only for them to abandon her in the end. She was incredibly unpleasant about it, telling me that if I had wanted to raise her children so badly, I should have stepped in sooner rather than taking over after the work was basically done. I wanted to tell her that she hadn't actually raised them. They had practically raised themselves because she was usually at work or out on dates with guys who eventually dumped her. After discovering she had 3 children, she had no idea what her priorities should be, and it was clear why things turned out as they did. The children chose the person who had genuinely been there for them over the person who had always tortured and reprimanded them, since she couldn't find anyone and was miserable in her life. It was evident that she had no idea she was harming them because she was suffering herself. However, I didn't want to rub it in her face because I knew it must have been unpleasant for her, which is why she was lashing out at me. So I kept quiet, and that was that. After that, we didn't really communicate. Her children chose to leave her and live with me. Diana also chose to cut ties with all of us and stop speaking to anyone, including our parents. This was weird because they had done nothing to deserve it. I believed the fact that they hadn't chosen her side against me when my nieces and nephew opted to live with me irritated her, so she cut them off as well. It's been 7 years and they're all doing well now. Don't know what Diana's been up to, but I know her children are thriving. My nephew went to medical school and is now a pediatrician. One of my nieces has a degree in literature and is now a teacher, and her twin sister has a hair salon. I helped all of them get business loans and supported them to the best of my ability. I'm very proud of them because they've come a long way. From their previous home, they're now living independently. They only stayed with me for 4 years, and even then, it wasn't really like they were living with me because they were generally away at college and only came back occasionally. Believe they didn't want to return to Diana's home where they didn't feel wanted? It's been 2 years since they all moved out. I'm very happy for them. I never expected anything in return for what I did because I truly believed it was the right thing to do. They were just kids, and no matter how bad things were between me and my sister, I could never be heartless to them. I've always had a soft spot for them, especially since I've never had kids or married. It wasn't my cup of tea, but for them. I wanted to be there as a parental figure because their father wasn't around. And well, we all know who Diana was. They needed someone, and my parents were too old for the position, so I stepped forward. That is all I did. I never anticipated anything in return, but I am grateful that they are the type of children who think I deserve a gift of appreciation for what I've done. Even though I don't believe it was something that required compensation, I appreciated their gesture about a week ago. I celebrated my 48th birthday with my friends and family, including my nieces and nephew. I had a great time, and my nephew was kind enough to organize everything for me, despite my desire to pay for everything. He insisted on covering the cost because he's now earning enough money to do things for me and show his appreciation. After the party, the 3 of them sat me down to talk. They told me that now that they were all financially established, they wanted to express their gratitude by collectively writing me a check. I tried to explain that it was unnecessary because I was still working and could support myself, but they insisted. They claimed it wasn't about repaying a debt. They could never repay me for what I had done for them, since it wasn't about money. It was about the encouragement and faith I had provided them, which they could never fully repay. This was their humble attempt to show their appreciation. I was deeply moved by their genuine act and wanted to share it on social media. I just wanted to thank them for everything they were doing for me. My sister and I hadn't spoken in years, so I didn't think she would care. I was blocked on every platform, and I assumed she wouldn't see it, so I felt it was fine. Diana had never followed up with us or inquired about her children's well-being after they had left home. Granted, it was they who broke up with her first and moved in with me, but that was her fault. The least she could have done was show interest in their lives and try to be a mother figure to them in order to make up for her faults. But to be honest, she didn't seem to care about the loss of communication, so I figured she was all right anyway. Following that post, I received a reply from her a few days ago. I wasn't expecting it because, as I said, we hadn't spoken in 6 years. However, I should have predicted that as soon as she realized her children were financially secure. Update as some responses advised. I recounted the situation to my nieces and nephew. They informed me they had heard about it from a few relatives and had considered speaking with me, but hadn't had the time. However, after I called them over and discussed it with them, they informed me that they believed I did the correct thing. My nephew was open about his views, stating that he had never considered his mother a maternal figure throughout his life. He always blamed me because she had never been there for him, and my niece agreed. He'd always been the most outspoken of the group, so it was predictable that this was all coming from him. My nieces were too emotional to speak, but he was quite angry and upset. He explained that Diana only spoke to me since she had never done the basic minimum for them. This was despite the fact that she was receiving child support from their father. And even then, she would humiliate them and make them feel horrible for merely existing, which was not their fault. They believe I did the right thing and have informed me that they will not contact their mother, regardless of what happens. They also believe that I should stand up for myself and explain my side of the story online now that Diana has decided to speak negatively about me on social media. They believe that this is the most effective approach to convey the message. Therefore, that's what I'll do. I'm delighted they opted to take my side in this because my parents are staying out of it and have stated that they don't want to get involved. Diana never spoke to them after her children cut her off, which I find unusual. My parents' polite approach to this problem strikes me as unusual, given that they have not communicated with Diana in the last 6 years. I was disappointed, but at least my nieces and nephew support me. Many people have asked me why I did not petition for custody and have the children taken away from Diana if I knew she was a bad mother and was mistreating them. I mentioned in my piece that while her actions were wrong, they did not constitute torture, abuse, or neglect. She was constantly harsh to them and wasn't emotionally present for her children. So while I could have filed for custody, it was quite improbable that I would have gotten the children into my care. Courts typically encourage families to keep together, and in this case, they had already lost their father. Their father had abandoned them, leaving them with only their mother as a biological parent. Naturally, the court would want the family to stay together. I knew that if I filed a petition against her or took legal action against Diana, she would ensure that I never saw them again. She would make certain that she took the kids far away from me. It was already improbable that I would have been able to take kids away from her and obtain full custody, so this would have put them in a dangerous situation. This is why I decided to play it safe by staying in touch with them and being available for them at all times. I'm not sure if it was the correct thing to do in the long term, but at the time, it seemed like the only option. Maybe there were other ways to deal with it, but it was all I could think of, so I did what I believed was right. It was difficult for me, and for years, I debated whether I should file for custody or have the kids taken away from her and rehomed. But there's no telling what might have occurred, and I figured it was better for the kids to stay with their mother and maintain touch with me and my parents than risk anything in this circumstance. I hope this answers the questions most people had for me. Maybe I came across as the evil guy for what I did, but I don't care. I know the kids are doing well in their life, and I did everything I could to keep them happy and safe. I was always there for them. Therefore, I don't feel guilty about anything. Update to it's been a week since Diana's message, and I've received a lot of phone calls today from family and people who have spoken with her. They were pointing out my mistakes and scolding me. It was getting really tiresome, and I was swamped with work, which is why I hadn't been able to post sooner. But today, I decided I'd had enough. After a brief talk with my nephew and nieces, I decided to finally make a post that shared my side of the story, as well as, in some ways, theirs. I don't think anyone in the family realized how much those kids had been through as children, how many taunts they had to endure every day, simply because Diana opted to become pregnant early and drop everything for her boyfriend at the time. Even after that, she continued to blame others for her own actions and attempted to appear as if she was doing everything in her ability to do the best for her children. But in actuality, she was never present for them. Since she was telling everyone that I had stolen her children from her and was now stealing a fortune from her now that her children were doing well financially, I felt people deserved to know the truth, not just her twisted version of events, in which she was the victim rather than the person who tormented everyone. They had already judged me for a variety of reasons since they only knew her side of the story and sympathized with her. But in reality, I deserved to share my side of the story, as did her children. So I typed everything up a few hours ago and published the post. So far she hasn't said anything to me, and the only texts I've gotten are from relatives who were judging me earlier. They have now abruptly changed their tune and are attempting to apologize for judging me too soon. But frankly, it means nothing to me. I simply wanted them to know the truth. I don't care what they think of me, but it was vital for me to speak the truth and share how Diana handled her children, which is why they are no longer in contact with her anyway. Now that everything is finished, I am ready to move on from this. Honestly, I don't want anything to do with Diana anymore. And I was perfectly content for the past 6 years when she didn't contact me. I believe the same may be stated for her children as well. I don't understand why she felt the need to create so much drama. If she wanted money, she might have asked for it rather than pretending to want another chance at motherhood. Update 3. It's been a day since I wrote that post. Diana may have woken up today and decided to get back at me. Instead of contacting me directly, she became increasingly dramatic and began commenting on that post, attempting to make it appear as if I was lying. But it was not going to work, obviously. As soon as she attempted to react, her children began commenting and responding to her, reminding her of particular episodes from their childhood in which she had been cruel to them. That lasted about an hour, and I didn't feel bad about it. Nobody else did because my nephew, nieces, and I were all thoroughly enjoying the process. They were utterly humiliating her, and there was no way she could get out of it, since every single lie she tried to say to make me look bad was discovered. I'm glad I chose to do this on the weekend. Otherwise, we might not have been able to respond as swiftly. Anyway, that lasted about an hour, and then she began deleting her comments so that no one could catch her in her falsehoods. It was too late because many others had already noticed what was going on in the comment section, and I believe she began to be called out for her actions by others. She started erasing her comments and backtracking on everything she said, and then she blocked me. She also blocked her children. I'm guessing it was her way of surrendering, and I'm pleased she did, because she would have lost in a fight with us. We clearly have the upper hand here, morally or otherwise. I believe deleting the comments would be the end of our connection, but she chose to contact me personally as well. She messaged me saying she hoped I was happy now that I had presented her as the monster, and everyone hated her. It was very ironic coming from her, because that was exactly what she was attempting to do to me first. She initiated it, and now when I wanted to return it to her, she is unable to accept it. I don't understand why individuals attempt to dish it out when they know they can't take it in return. Just don't cause any drama if you don't want to be held accountable for the results. Anyway, I disregarded that message, and that's what we're all going to do for the rest of our lives because she's no longer worth our attention. She has proven it. Thank you for watching. Dude, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so, and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real life stories happening around you.